Everyone's chasing AI skills, but judgment is now priceless. I 100% agree that we can now generate pretty much anything. What is important is the judgment to tell whether the output is valid, valuable, and should be used in work in any way. Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit special. I'm going to be looking at a concept called world models. This is because there haven't been any big shifts in AI news, but there has been a new article, which I'm going to link in the newsletter, by Dr. Fei-Fei Lee. So Fei-Fei Lee, she works at Stanford, professor of computer science at Stanford, the co-director of the Stanford HAI, and a co-founder of World Labs. She's known in particular for her work with image, which has been out for a few years, but now they are moving into world models. And I want to discuss what world models are, why this is potentially the next big thing in artificial intelligence. Basically look at what Fei-Fei Lee is talking about right now. There's no big news, so this is a good excuse to deep dive into a particular concept. I hope that's okay with everybody. As always, it's going to be in the newsletter and in the chopped up YouTube videos, which are available on my YouTube channel. Make sure you are subscribed. This is based on a series of tweets and a new Substack article from Dr. Fei-Fei Lee talking about spatial intelligence, which is connected to world models. She says AI's next frontier is spatial intelligence, a technology that will turn seeing into reasoning, perception into action, and imagination into creation. But what is it? Why does it matter? How do we build it and how can we use it? Today I want to share with you my thoughts on building and using world models to unlock spatial intelligence in the essay below. I'm going to go through the essay as well. It's on Dr. Fei's Substack, totally free, and I will put the link in the newsletter as well. But let's first cover what she has in the tweet, which is a good summary, and then dive in. We're also going to look at previous methods of trying to give artificial intelligence a world in which to live and inhabit, and why it might be different moving forward. Dr. Fei-Fei says, in this new essay, I lay out the framework for what truly spatial intelligent world models must achieve. 3 essential capabilities for building AI that creates with a storyteller's imagination, navigates with a first responder's fluency, and reasons about space with scientific precision. So AI has never been more exciting. Generative AI models such as LLMs, large language models like ChatGPT, have moved from research labs to everyday life, becoming tools of creativity, productivity, and communication for billions of people. About 10% of the world's population uses ChatGPT, so this is very much here. Yet, they remain wordsmiths in the dark. I do love how she writes. Eloquent but inexperienced, knowledgeable but ungrounded. Spatial intelligence will transform how we create and interact with real and virtual worlds, revolutionizing storytelling, creativity, robotics, scientific discovery, and beyond. Large language models, the current form of generative AI that powers most of the AIs we're using on a daily basis, are cut off from the world at large. They have some ability to search the internet, but they don't have a grounding in physical reality. Unlike us, they can't look around, they can't touch, they can't see, they don't have perceptions which allow them to interact with the world in the same way that we do. Fei-Fei Lee is talking about how this spatial intelligence, this existence within a space, it could be physical, it could be digital, is what leads to a higher level of intelligence in humanity and animals as well. But the core of unlocking spatial intelligence is the development of world models, a new type of generative AI that must meet a fundamentally different set of challenges than large language models. These models must generate spatially consistent worlds that obey physical laws, process multimodal inputs, video, audio, language, from images to actions, and predict how those worlds evolve or be interacted with over time, simulating the world. If you've ever watched The Matrix, this might trigger some conspiracy theories that we are living in the simulation, because we are talking about building our own simulations of reality. The application of spatial intelligence are wide-ranging. Creative tools are emerging now. World Labs, this is Dr. Fei's company, World Labs Marble already puts these capabilities into creators and storytellers' hands. Robotics represents an ambitious midterm horizon as we refine the loop between perception and action. The most transformative scientific applications will take longer, but promise a profound impact on flourishing. So Fei-Fei is saying there are going to be 3 basic stages. First, we will build world models for creativity and storytelling. We're talking about being able to give interactive worlds like video games. You've probably seen projects where working video game prototypes have been generated using artificial intelligence, where you can move around inside that world. And you might have thought, oh, why are they wasting their time and their money building video games using artificial intelligence? This is why. Because it's a step towards building world models, an AI simulation where you can move forward, the world changes around you, you can interact with objects, and the world knows how those interactions work. This actually links back to an article I just saw, which is OpenAI could be blowing as much as $15 million per day on silly Sora videos. This is from Forbes. It came out yesterday, so it's brand new. So people are saying, why the hell are OpenAI wasting time with Sora? This is why. Because if we can master consistency in video, if we can start mapping textual requests into video images, this starts to move us towards world models and being able to create a consistent environment. There is no consistency. When you stop generating a Sora video, that world does not continue to exist. It's a one-time thing. But the technologies that are being deployed in something like Sora and image generation and video game simulations is similar to what we're going to be using with the world models. We're going to use it initially for silly little videos, but that technology is laying the foundation for something much larger. Dr. Fei talks about it here. First, we're going to be using it for creators and storytellers. So it's going to be allowing world creation and then allowing people into your world, creating within that world, making movies within that world, video games, silly little videos as well. That's the first stage. Then we link it to robotics. So robotics right now, we can give them the ability to perceive, the ability to see, but it's still quite limited. What we can do if we can build world models is we can train robotics much faster. Instead of having to build a robot, take it out into the street or a self-driving car and run it to collect up data and make it better, we can run those simulations within a world model and do that 1,000,000 times faster than in the physical world because we're using a digital model, and then we can take those learnings out into physical world. So that's stage 2, robotics. And then the third is going to take longer, Dr. Fei-Fei says, which is scientific applications. If we can simulate the physics of the universe, gravity, all the different forces, then we can run tests in a simulation of the world much faster than we can do in real life. We can fold proteins, if we can test nuclear forces inside our world model, which simulates the reality outside, we're able to run millions more tests in the time it would take us to do one test, because we can do it all within a simulated environment. So that's the promise, but getting there is going to take a while. Fei-Fei Lee finishes here with, the philosopher Wittgenstein once wrote that the limits of my language mean the limits of my world. I am not a philosopher, but I know at least for AI, there is more than just words. Spatial intelligence represents the frontier beyond language, the capability that links perception and action and opens possibilities for machines to truly enhance human life, for healthcare to creativity, scientific discovery to everyday assistance. So that's the tweet. I'm going to add that into the newsletter. I am going to go into a deep dive inside of the article, but first I'm going to answer some questions from the live audience, and then we'll hop on over to the actual article. And again, I'm going to put all of these into the newsletter tomorrow. Let's see if there's any questions. Is temporary ChatGPT really confidential from everyone? Probably not. There have been signs that is still going to OpenAI. And the reason people know this is when you request a deletion. People were asking for a download of all the data OpenAI had on them. You can request it, and people were finding temporary chats or private chats were in that data. So I think it's still going to the server. We know it's still going to the server because it has to go to the server in order to process our request. Whether or not OpenAI are honoring the deletion of that information later is, it depends how much you trust OpenAI. So I'd say if you have something truly secure, truly confidential, running a local model is the best way to do it, because then you are not connected to the internet. And that's becoming increasingly viable because we have some really good open models. Kimi K2 Thinking came out earlier this week. It's too much to run on just a standard PC at home unless you have a whole load of GPUs, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. But you can rent a server and run it on there relatively cost effectively. You then have to trust the company you're renting the server from, but at some point there needs to be some trust. Kimi K2 thoughts, fantastic, a really good model. I've only been using it, just testing around with it. I haven't switched over from Claude to Kimi for coding. I still find Claude using Sonnet 4.5 to be better, but Kimi seems to be extremely good. What this means for-profit closed source companies like OpenAI, who are now for-profit, when China can release open source models that are state of the art, or even if they're not as good, something that is competitive with these closed source models coming from the West. I think that is the most interesting element here, because it raises questions about things like OpenAI trying to go for a $1 trillion IPO. If the Chinese are building models and open sourcing them, that undercuts the revenue and profit projections of the closed source models and the companies running them. So I think it's fascinating from that point of view. I'm not using Kimi K2 myself. It hasn't replaced any other models, but I can see the appeal of it and how powerful it is. And if you're running a local model, if you want to fine-tune a model, it's a no-brainer right now. Although it is becoming more and more difficult to run local models just because they're getting bigger, and it requires you to have more and more processing power. PewDiePie actually did a video on this recently. So PewDiePie, he spent $20,000 on, let's put it up, it's called Stop Using AI Right Now. It's from a week ago. He spent $20,000 building a rig and running local models on it. Even with a $20,000 rig, I think he has 10 GPUs in it, he was hitting the limits of what he could do with it. So increasingly, this is going to be a problem, and we're going to have to rent server space if we want to run our own model. It won't be local to us, but it will be on a VPS, for example. Okay, I'm going to hop into Fei-Fei Lee's actual article. I'll put this in the newsletter so that you can get access to it. So this is an important article and something you need to know about moving forward, because it's going to be something that's in discussion, in contention over the next few years as one of the next stages for artificial intelligence. So from words to worlds, spatial intelligence is AI's next frontier. And again, it's from Dr. Fei-Fei Lee. So Dr. Fei-Fei Lee, she spent years building ImageNet, which is the first large-scale visual learning and benchmarking data set still used, and one of the three key elements enabling the birth of modern AI. She's not gassing herself up here. This is true. Dr. Fei-Fei Lee is legit. And she also teaches at Stanford and runs the AI lab at Stanford. So this isn't just some crank on their Substack. This is very legit. I just talked about the outlines of this article through Dr. Fei-Fei Lee's tweet. So we can look at the details here. So she's defining spatial intelligence. So spatial intelligence will transform how we create and interact with real and virtual worlds, revolutionizing storytelling, creativity, robotics, scientific discovery, and beyond. This is AI's next frontier. As I just mentioned, she talks how it's going to go through different stages. So first, storytelling and creativity, allowing us to create and interact with worlds, to create films, video games, silly videos, absolutely. But then moving on to robotics, allowing us to train robots in simulated environments to speed up our progress to deploying them. And then into scientific discovery, when we have a sophisticated enough model of the physical world and all of the physics inside of it, gravity, nuclear forces, etc., we can start to simulate scientific experiments en masse. So very cool stuff. And this essay is basically outlining what it is, what world models need to have, and then where do we go from here. So spatial intelligence is, Fei-Fei Lee is arguing, required to move artificial intelligence onto the next level of intelligence. So implicit here is the idea that large language models are insufficient to move us to AGI. She doesn't really talk about AGI, doesn't touch on it. There's no need really, but basically this is saying we are going to run into limits with large language models because LLMs can only use language and they can only kind of work in like sequential language, word by word, and we need to take it into a higher dimension, the ability to simulate a whole world and embed language and a meaning within space. It's a much larger challenge than simply a very advanced version of autocorrect. So she says, AI has never been more exciting. Generative AI models such as LLMs have moved from research lab to everyday life, becoming tools of creativity, productivity, and communication for billions of people. Yes, they have demonstrated capabilities once thought impossible, and they keep doing this. We keep seeing new mathematical leaps and bounds, for example. producing coherent text, mountains of code, photorealistic images, and even short video clips with ease. It's no longer a question of whether AI will change the world. By any reasonable definition, it already has. Yet, so much still lies beyond our reach. The vision of autonomous robots remains intriguing but speculative, far from the fixtures of daily life that futurists have long promised. So we are seeing things like Xpeng's Iron, which is the new kind of hot robot that we're all excited about right now, which is going to mass production. But there is the question that people are, I think, rightfully asking, what can it do? It's very good at walking, it looks great, but what can it do in the real world? Can it cook? Can it do household chores? What are we going to do with it once it arrives in our homes? The dream of massively accelerated research in fields like disease curation, new material discovery and particle physics remains largely unfulfilled. So we can't do that with large language models for the most part. And the promise of AI that truly understands and empowers human creators, whether it's students learning intricate concepts in molecular chemistry, architects visualizing spaces, filmmakers building worlds, or anyone seeking fully immersive virtual experiences, remains beyond reach. We have some toy examples of this, like Sora has consistency from frame to frame, which means there is some level of world inside, but that disappears the moment the videos stop being generated. It's almost like a facsimile. It's like Plato's cave version of the full world behind us, but we are just seeing one dimension, which is a 10-second Sora video. So we're not there. We're moving towards it though. To learn why these capabilities remain elusive, we need to examine how spatial intelligence evolved, how it shapes our understanding of the world. Vision has long been a cornerstone of human intelligence, but its power emerged from something even more fundamental. Long before animals could care for their young, communicate with language, or build civilizations, the simple act of sensing quietly sparked an evolutionary journey towards intelligence. The ability to glean information from the external world, whether a glimmer of light or the feeling of texture, created a bridge between perception and survival that only grew stronger and more elaborate as the generations passed. Layer upon layer of neurons grew from that bridge, forming nervous systems that interpret the world and coordinate actions between an organism and its surrounding. Many scientists have conjectured that perception and action became the core loop driving the evolution of intelligence. This is why spatial intelligence is key, according to Fei-Fei Lee. So once you have perception and action, and then perception of how that action worked, and then more actions based on that perception, you get this loop, this feedback, and this learning, which drives evolution, and it drives us. It makes our brains bigger and bigger, because the more we can perceive, the more we can act, and the more we can perceive the actions, the more intelligent we become. Dr. Fei-Fei Lee is saying that this is the fundamental driver of the evolution of intelligence. It's a very strong argument. We as human beings have a whole range of different senses, and we've had to grow a large brain to deal with all of this as we started to act on the environment, the space around us. We form and change the world that we live in to an astounding degree. So spatial intelligence played a fundamental role in defining how we interact with the physical world. Every day, we rely on it for the most ordinary acts. Parking a car by imagining the narrowing gap between the bumper and the curb. Catching a set of keys tossed across a room. Navigating a crowded sidewalk without collision. As a Londoner, I know about that. Or sleepily pouring coffee into a mug without looking. In more extreme circumstances, firefighters navigate collapsing buildings through shifting smoke, making split-second judgments about stability and survival, communicating through gestures, body language, and shared professional instinct for which there is no linguistic substitute. Language is not enough. Language cannot capture all of that information sufficiently. And children spend the entirety of their pre-verbal months or years learning the world through playful interactions with their environment. That's how humans learn. They don't speak right off the back. They are instead learning through interacting, doing, playing, working out how the world around them works. All of this happens intuitively, automatically, a fluency machines have yet to achieve. So Fei-Fei Lee goes on to say that this is what we need to give our artificial intelligences. We need to give them a world, a sandbox that they understand, can manipulate, and they can see the results of their manipulation of that environment. If you play video games, you're probably used to working in a digital environment, much more than the general population. We're talking about the same thing here. Simulating an environment, it's like giving them Skyrim, but giving AI free rein of this environment to experiment, learn, mess around, and start to build its knowledge of what is happening. So spatial intelligence is the scaffolding upon which our cognition is built. It's at work when we passively observe or actively seek to create. It drives our reasoning and planning, even on the most abstract topics, and it's essential to the way we interact verbally or physically with our peers or with the environment itself. We routinely think in the same way, making sense of the complex world by perceiving it through our senses, then leveraging an intuitive understanding of how it works in physical spatial terms. Unfortunately, and this is the key point, today's AI doesn't think like this yet. That AIs are cut off from the world around them. Yeah, we feed them lots of data, we throw it all into their training, we run them through several stages of training and then add in the guardrails post-training, which allows us to give them an idea of the world, but then they are pretty much cut off. They are not able to sense after that point. They are static. So a tremendous progress has been made in the past few years. LLMs, trained with voluminous multimedia data, in addition to textual data, have introduced some basics of spatial awareness. This is why models like Sora can generate videos, which look so realistic to us because they have some idea of how the world looks and how it interacts, consistency from frame to frame. AI can analyze pictures, answer questions about them, and generate hyper-realistic images and short videos. And through breakthroughs in sensors and haptics, so the ability to see and touch, our most advanced robots can begin to manipulate objects and tools in highly constrained environments. Yet the candid truth is that AI spatial capabilities remain far from human level, and the limits reveal themselves quickly. State-of-the-art LLMs rarely perform better than chance on estimating distance, orientation and size, or mentally rotating objects by regenerating them from new angles. They can't navigate mazes, recognize shortcuts, or predict basic physics. AI-generated videos, nascent and yes, very cool, often lose coherence after a few seconds, and that's because they don't have this core of reality, the simulated world from which they can borrow. Fei-Fei Lee says, this is how we push AI forward and why it's such an important concept. She's worth listening to because she's built some really cool stuff in the past and is one of the pioneers of the technologies we're using today. She talks about the 3 essential capabilities of a world model. The first one is generative. A world model should be able to generate worlds of perceptual, geometrical, and physical consistency. So they must be capable of spawning endlessly varied and diverse simulated worlds. A world model should be able to create infinite worlds and play around with all of them and be able to test its AI in all of these worlds. Big difference. At the moment with video games, we handcraft the engine. We use a physics engine. Everything is built for the purpose of that game. This world model should be able to generate infinite worlds. The research community is actively exploring whether these worlds should be represented implicitly or explicitly in terms of innate geometric structures. This is stuff for the smart researchers. She believes the outputs of a universal world model must also allow the generation of an explicit observable state of the worlds for many different use cases. So being able to see and get into it, I think. Understanding of the present must be tied coherently to its past, to the previous states that the world has led to the current one. So that is giving it a sense of consistency, which we don't really have in large language models right now. When you stop prompting an LLM, for all intents and purposes, it's dead. It is no longer consistent. Every time you prompt it, it re-emerges, gives you the answer, and then goes dormant again. Yes, we have things like memory, but that is just pulling past memories from past conversations into the flow. It is not always on. This is one thing about large language models and AIs that people talk about it gaining consciousness. We have to remember that in between prompting, in between it being used by humans, the AI is not doing anything. It is not there consciously working things out and plotting against us. It doesn't exist unless we prompt it. What we're talking about here, though, is something more consistent, more coherent, a world that continues to live. Very different. Multimodal, this is the second capability. So world models are multimodal by design. It should be able to process inputs, known as prompts in the generative AI realm, in a wide range of forms, giving partial information, whether videos, images, depth maps, text instructions, gestures, or actions. The world model should predict or generate world states as complete as possible. This requires processing visual inputs with the fidelity of real vision, while interpreting semantic instructions with equal facility. It needs to be able to deal with anything we can throw at it. It needs to be multimodal. Interactive. World models can output the next states based on inputs and actions. Again, coming back to video games, this is how video game engines and worlds work. It's something that you can move around in and it will react to you. If actions and goals are part of the prompt to a world model, its outputs must include the next state of the world, represented either implicitly or explicitly. When given only an action, the world model should produce an output consistent with the world's previous state, the intended goal state and its semantic meanings, physical laws, and dynamical behavior. As spatially intelligent world models become more powerful and robust in their reasoning and generation capabilities, it is conceivable that in the case of a given goal, the world models themselves should be able to predict not only the next state of the world, but also the next actions based on the new state. The scope of this challenge exceeds anything AI has faced before. So I think she's being realistic here. This is huge. We've managed to pretty much constrain language within artificial intelligence. Fei-Fei Lee is arguing that this is what takes us to the next level. This is what creates something that can ramp our science into unknown realms. This is the kind of thing that would allow us to have exponential progress in our science and in our discoveries, because we can simulate the world and run experiments and learn more about it than ever before. So I'm going to give you this whole article. It is well worth reading because world models are going to be extremely important over the next couple of years. This is a good foundation in what they are and why you should be paying attention. So again, this will be in the newsletter. I'm covering this in depth because there isn't much AI news today. Sometimes there just isn't anything, but at least it's given me an excuse to talk about world models. So check out the newsletter. Sorry if I've been blabbing, but this is a more coherent subject. So what I'm going to do now is go back over to the questions. I'm sure I have a few people saying, he's not listening to us, but that's fine. At least we're going to have some good YouTube videos. Right. Any advice on building a personal brand on X and LinkedIn from scratch? And so I'd actually say use TikTok, which I know is not what you've asked, but TikTok is really good for social media. And the reason for this is every single video on TikTok is treated independently. So when you go to other social media platforms, they tend to look at your pre-existing audience. So on Instagram, for example, the algorithm will look at how good your video is, how engaging your video is, but it's also looking at your existing follower base. So big accounts tend to get bigger. Small accounts, it's very hard to get a foothold. You just need to keep plugging at it for a long time. TikTok's very different because every single video is treated independently. It doesn't matter if you have a huge account. Your first video, if it is engaging, could potentially go to millions of people. That doesn't happen on other social media platforms. So TikTok has a very video-focused algorithm rather than account-focused. That means it's a lot more rewarding for smaller creators because you don't need to go through the grind. It happens, they've posted 2 or 3 videos and then suddenly one has shot them up to 10,000 followers. Doesn't happen everywhere else. TikTok's great for that reason. It does require doing video, of course, short form video, which is trickier. If you can get over the fear of doing that, it's an incredibly powerful mode of creation because most people don't want to do it. So there's less competition. In terms of X and LinkedIn, I'm not very big on X. I've only got 20,000 or so. And LinkedIn, I think I have 13,000 followers, but I don't pay much attention to it. I don't like LinkedIn. So I can't really talk about those with any authority. I'm not very large on Twitter or LinkedIn. I think, though, generally, post about your expertise. Don't use AI to post. I know I'm an AI person, but it's a race to the bottom and it's not really worthwhile. Inject some personality, inject some of you, basically. I think that's going to become more and more valuable on any platform. It's very tempting to use AI. It's very tempting to generate content automatically and post it automatically, but that is a race to the bottom. If everybody else is doing that, there's no way to differentiate yourself. Go the other way and inject more personality, get on video, make mistakes, be a human being would be my main kind of recommendation for any social media. And also consistency. You just need to put out content every day for a long time. It took me about 5 or 6 months on TikTok, just grinding away, doing a couple of videos a day until suddenly it shot up. I had my first video which got to about 3 million people. You just have to keep going until it happens. Consistency, be a human being, and ideally do video rather than text and rather than image, because it is the most engaging format and one the algorithm wants to show to people. Don't give up. is the other thing. I know WhatsApp groups with lots of creators, and without doubt, everybody's first video that kicked off was one they were not expecting. They were chugging along, getting a few hundred views, maybe 1,000 views, and then suddenly they'd have one that went to 100,000, 500,000 or 1 million. And without exception, it was always a video they did not expect. So there's no real way to judge. You just have to keep going until the algorithm gods are like, okay, now's your turn. Just keep going. Sorry. I saw someone say the world path to AGI is through world models. I think this is what Fei-Fei Lee is saying. She never uses the word AGI, which is smart. Let me see if she uses it. I'm just searching her article. Yeah, she's just not engaging in that debate, because as soon as you mention that, people are like, it doesn't exist. She's just staying away from that particular debate. She's a smart woman, and instead saying, hey, I think this is going to be important moving forward. She doesn't say this is the way to AGI, this is the way to ASI. I think that is implicitly underlying it. She just doesn't want to engage in that debate, which I don't blame her for, because it's semantic. I don't think we'll necessarily know when we've hit AGI, but maybe a year or two later we'll look back and be like, oh yeah, that's when it happened. Right now we keep moving the goalposts anyway. What we would have considered AGI a couple of years ago, we've probably got to. But then we're like, oh, it's not AGI because an AI is doing it. So it's too easy. And then we move the goalposts and we keep doing that. But I would agree that world models seem like a really powerful step towards whatever we define AGI as, because it gives our models grounding in a reality in space. Saw an interesting post about judgment becoming a critical bottleneck in an AI-enabled org. Yeah, was that Nate B. Jones? Let me pull it up. I saw Nate talking about this. Whatever Nate says is always very interesting. Anyone who doesn't follow Nate B. Jones, he's on TikTok. It's his primary channel. And he's also got a really good Substack that you should subscribe to. He just had a video on judgment, and that's going to become the bottleneck, which I think, here we go. Everyone's chasing AI skills, but judgment is now priceless. It's his latest video, so make sure you check it out. I 100% agree that we can now generate pretty much anything. What is important is the judgment to tell whether the output is valid, valuable, and should be used in work in any way. I think judgment also comes into play when we prompt, when we work with an AI, because you can use, different people can be given the same AI in entirely different ways. You could use an AI to carefully plan out a project, to have it push back on what you're saying. So you say, look, interview me, and then I want you to find gaps in my knowledge. You can 100% do this and come out with a very vigorous and strong plan for a coding project, a book, or whatever it is. AI can help you with that. Or you can go into the AI and say, hey, I want you to build me XYZ, go. And that's lacking judgment on the front end, because you are basically abdicating all of the responsibility, all of the work over to the AI, instead of doing any of the kind of pre-processing and pre-production with the AI. So on the front end, you can say, nope, you're doing it all. I don't care what you're doing. Go nuts. And then on the back end, this is checking out what the AI's actually done. A lot of people just copy and paste. They're taking it straight from ChatGPT. We had that about a month ago, 2 months ago, that Deloitte case where Deloitte Australia had to refund a portion of a 440,000 Australian dollar contract that they'd done for the Australian government, when it was found that it was riddled with hallucinations, made up citations. It made up some scholars, which they then footnoted, totally made up, because the Deloitte consultants did not check their work. They got it from the AI, stuck it in a report, and charged the Australian government $500,000. That is judgment on the back end that is lacking. I think we need both when it comes to artificial intelligence. This is also the case with design, creative work. We need taste, which is a form of judgment. We need the ability to tell whether it's a good or a bad output. And that's what a lot of people do not have. So you see this with a lot of AI websites. They all look the same. The people who are building these things, myself included, don't have the taste level to take it to the next stage. Judgment and taste are incredibly important. It's hard for us to practice judgment and taste when we rely on artificial intelligence tools to do the work for us. Judgment comes from putting in the hard work, from getting things wrong, learning from those mistakes, and becoming more knowledgeable and skilled in a particular area. That's being robbed from us if we use AI lazily. I saw a Reddit post about somebody in the library at Harvard looking at the laptops of all the students. They were all on ChatGPT. Maybe some of them were using ChatGPT as a tutor to help them master the material. I would guess a lot of them were just using it to help write essays and put together papers. That robs you of the process of learning, which comes from the struggle of working your way through material, the struggle of writing up essays. The process is what causes you to learn. That leads to judgment. That is potentially being taken from us. It's quite hard to teach judgment and to teach taste. If you are good at judging, if you're good at taste, you're going to be in high demand moving forward because you'll be able to leverage these tools in a very effective way. Go and check out Nate B. Jones's videos on this topic. Anything he puts out is great, honestly, though. Just scrolling back up. I'm a founder. Honestly, I've seen hundreds of founders with barely any reach on TikTok. So I think the main thing is you need to don't talk about your business. It's the one thing I see a lot of founders doing. They're talking about what they sell, what their products are, what their business is. No one cares. People only care about what's in it for them. So the content needs to be for the other person, educational, entertainment, and then you can grow your account based off the back of that. For me, it's been education primarily, talking about artificial intelligence. I do have products. I do sell things as well. I just don't make videos about that. It's because you're aiming with social media at the top of the funnel, which is going to be generalized content. It's going to be entertaining or educational for the other person. It's going to stop them scrolling. They're going to spend a bit of time with you. And then you can move people down that funnel. So for me, it's taking them over to the newsletter where it goes into a bit more depth. They can spend more time consuming my content. And then from there are various sales routes. But I never talk about my business or try to sell anything on social media directly. And that's the problem I see a lot of founders making, is they will get the camera and talk about what they want to sell you. No one wants to be sold to. You use the top level of social media to gain attention first, and then you filter it down. If there's no news and learning new concepts is still fun, yes, agree. As I mentioned earlier, there's not much AI news today. It's a relatively quiet day. There's always something happening, but there isn't anything particularly interesting. So that's why we did a deeper dive into world models. Who is the world model researcher you mentioned? Her name is Dr. Fei-Fei Lee. So Fei-Fei is F-E-I, Lee, L-I, Fei-Fei Lee. And she's Dr. Fei-Fei on Twitter. And her Substack is called Dr. Fei-Fei. That's a good name. So definitely go and check out her stuff. Okay. Whose videos? Nate Jones. You'll probably recognize him. Big beard, wears a beanie hat a lot of the time, and he knows his stuff. So there's a few people that I highly recommend following because you get a lot of signal versus noise. Nate B. Jones is one of them, primarily on TikTok, and he has a Substack. Second would be Ethan Mollick. He writes on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and again he has a Substack, extremely high value. The third would be Simon Willison. He's a bit more technical. Willison. He's a British guy. He even calls it a blog, really old-fashioned. But again, he writes daily and it's extremely high value. So those three in particular I highly recommend. Nate B. Jones, Ethan Mollick, and Simon Willison. Just very high signal to noise ratio. I check on what they're doing every single day. Ran into Nate B. Jones randomly in the street in Stockholm, and we went for coffee afterwards. It was such a weird thing. I can know his stuff. I watch all his stuff. I have him on WhatsApp, but I walked past him randomly in the street. I was there for a work thing. He was not there for a work thing. Walked past him and could not place the fact that it was Nate and what he was doing there. So 10 minutes later, I texted him like, "Are you in Sweden? I swear I just saw you in the street." And we went for a coffee after that. But it was just so bizarre seeing somebody, he's not Swedish, he's from America. Somebody in a place you're not expecting them to be is extremely disorientating. But yeah, definitely follow all of those people because they know what they're doing. I work in tech support for a real estate company. Any project you think would be useful to try in my free time? Honestly, try a hand at vibe coding. Even if you don't have a high technical level, vibe coding is really cool. You can start to build projects. So if you work tech support in a real estate company, I would honestly look at the tasks you do daily and see if you can build a tool using vibe coding to help with those tasks. Do it for yourself initially, because if you are having that problem, then chances are every single real estate company in your country also have this problem. So you can build out a solution for yourself using vibe coding, then take it to your company and say, "Hey, I built this." Don't build it on their time. Don't build it on their computer. Very important, because then they have rights to it. Again, depending on your country. But see if they are interested in something like that. And they might be willing to pay you for it. They might want to license it from you. Then expand to other companies. Do be careful though about building on their time and with their resources. Don't do that, because then they have a claim to what you have built. So do it on your own time and your own computer. But that's what I would start with. Solve your own problems with vibe coding, because chances are other people have that problem too. Also realize that the first few projects you do with vibe coding probably won't be very good. And that's fine, because it's a learning process. I see a lot of people out of the gate log into Lovable or download Cursor or get Claude code, and the first thing they want to build is a replacement for Salesforce or something like that. Don't do that. Start with something small, a single function, get that working, make sure it's useful, and then move on to another project. You can learn step by step. If you have never coded before, I recommend Lovable. These guys, it starts at about $25 a month. If you are a bit more confident, you can try Cursor. Cursor is a proper development environment. It's one I use personally. If you are more comfortable, the top of the range is Claude Code. Claude Code is fantastic, but it requires a few more technical hurdles to get working. Start with Lovable, wet your feet, realize that you can build stuff nowadays, and then move on to Cursor and Claude Code when you're feeling more comfortable. I'd highly recommend that as your side project. Hi Lyra, it's afternoon, God it is. Trying to link ChatGPT to Notion via Made, and the coding isn't matching. Oh. Do you mean make.com? I've actually stopped using make.com Zapier because I've just been doing it myself. In terms of the code not matching, it sounds very meta and very lazy, but take your problems back to ChatGPT. So in a different window and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. This is why it's not working. Here are the error codes I can see. Here are the console logs. What's going wrong? And then use it to diagnose the issue. So most vibe coding is that, where you have it create something for you, it won't work, and then you're going to diagnose and work through the problem bit by bit. So you can use AI to work out why your AI isn't working, if that makes sense. So ChatGPT to Notion. Doesn't Claude have a integrated Notion? Am I going mad? Claude has a Notion connector. I haven't used it, but might be worth looking at as an alternative, because that might be simpler. Give it a shot. I really like Claude too, so I'm biased. With vibe coding, the best three tools. So it depends on your level of technical familiarity and comfort. To start with, Lovable. So Lovable there, it's about $25 a month. That gives you an interface so you can preview, see what's going on. It will deal with your back end. It connects to Supabase automatically. So it takes away a lot of the technical difficulties starting up. That also means it takes away some of your control. That is the trade-off. Early days, you don't necessarily want that much control because it means there's more things to learn, more things to go wrong. After Lovable, what I recommend is Cursor. Cursor is a downloadable application that sits on your computer. It looks like a development environment if you've ever used VS Code or anything like that, but it has a chat window on the right-hand side that you talk to as you would with ChatGPT, and it can deal with all your files. What I personally do is I'll often start projects in Lovable, get the basic shape together, work out whether it's worth building, and then I'll use GitHub to move it over into Cursor and then go from there. And then the third one would be Claude Code. Now, Claude Code is an agentic system which works on top of Sonnet 4.5 or the Claude coding models. Professional way to do it is through the command line interface. So you're going to open up a terminal, do an npm. If you haven't used terminal before, then it's incredibly intimidating. You can get it working inside of Cursor. That's what I do. I have Claude Code running in the terminal in Cursor. As of last week, they've released something called Claude Code on the web. If you go to Claude.txt, on the left-hand side in the navigation bar, they've now added a code button. It's only on the paid plan, so you need to pay either $20 a month or $200 a month. And your usage, how much capacity you get, will depend on that. But up until a week left, they gave us all free credits. So if you are on the $20 a month, they've given you $250 of Claude Code web credits for free. If you're on the $200 a month, they've given you 1,000 credits. I still have $950 worth of credits and only 7 days to spend them. So they've been very generous, but it's a lot of credits. So you can use Claude Code on the web as well. That said, it's very slow on the web, and for me, at least, it keeps crashing. This is a new product, it only came out last week. If you can get Claude Code working in the terminal, inside a Cursor, or locally on your computer, it requires more technical setup, but that will give you the best vibe coding model there is at the moment. So Lovable for beginning, just to wet your feet, to be like, oh, this is cool, I can build software, this is awesome. And then Cursor as a step up from there, and then Claude Code as a step up from Cursor. That would be my recommendation. Claude Code on the web doesn't have local file access though, right? No, it doesn't. You can connect it to a GitHub repository. So for those people who don't know what that is, it's basically a cloud storage, more or less. However, then it needs to push, like every time, it really is a faff and it takes a lot more time. So I have not been using it. I've just been using the command line interface. Does 100 Lovable credits get me much for personal use? I want to scrape a site weekly. Okay, so for scraping, LLMs aren't very good at scraping. For scraping, use Apify. APIFY is a web scraping API. I use it for lots of things. If you saw my Vibe Coding Live, where I built a tool that pulls social media videos from TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and then grabs the script, that's all done via Apify. So Apify can scrape pretty much any site on the web and grab all that data for you. It will do this much better than an LLM. If you send an LLM off to visit sites, it will either get blocked because it arrives as an agent, or the LLM will be like, oh, I'm not allowed to do that. They're not very reliable. Use Apify for scraping, which means you don't need to reach into your Lovable credits at all. 100 Lovable credits for personal use. It depends what you're building, honestly. It's probably enough. What I would say with their pricing is that you can just upgrade and use your 100 credits. If you need more, you can upgrade and it will just charge you the difference. So start at the lowest plan. There's no need to buy a high plan, honestly. And then you build. If you hit the end of your credits, it's up to you to decide whether you want to upgrade, or you can wait for the next month to roll over. I'm using Google AI Studio right now. Google AI Studio is also amazing, and I should start recommending this as well. We pay minimum $25 a month for Google AI Studio. It has a terrible interface and it's hard to find their vibe coding tool. But if you go into aistudio.google.com, or if you Google AI Studio, Google AI Studio, it should turn up. You're then going to look for, on the left-hand side, the build button. That takes you into their vibe coding tool. It's literally just a chat interface that you can talk to, and you can build using Gemini and Nano Banana. So you can make really good image generating tools here. It is free to use. The way they make money is that if you do deploy it, if you do want to start using it and having people come to your site in any amount of volume, then you'll pay for the API usage. So that's how they make money, and that's why it's free to use initially. So if you don't even want to pay for Lovable upfront, go mess around with Google AI Studio build mode to get a feel for vibe coding. That's a really good new option. Thank you, EdTech teacher. I forgot about that one. Okay. Oh gosh, loads of questions. I have vibe coded a GCSE maths AI tutor through worked examples. What sort of job roles can I look at applying for in the UK? From what you've built, I would try to take it to market. If you are applying for a job, the fact that we can now code up little tools and use them in our portfolio is really cool. I would be publishing about it on Twitter, for example. Companies are looking for people who can vibe code, who can build very quickly. Unless you are a coder, you won't say I'm a full stack coder, I'm a developer. No, instead you can go into like product management roles, but with a vibe coding skill, so you can actually mock up prototypes, proof of concepts. I think that puts you in a really good position for finding a job. Some companies are advertising for vibe coders, but it's not that many at the moment because it's still such a new term. It did get voted the word of the year recently, so more people will know about it soon. Tried to get ChatGPT to build shopping baskets in the UK. Failed Human said no. A lot of websites are adjusting their Robots.txt to block AI agents. It's going to be a war fought for the next few years about whether sites want agents coming, because an agent could be coming to the site to scrape it, to pull competitor information, to get pricing information, then undercut, for example, or the agent could be coming because the user wants to make a purchase. I could have an agent which goes out and finds flight tickets and makes purchases. And Expedia probably wants that because then they're making a sale. The problem right now is there's no way to differentiate between agents are coming to basically nick information to scrape versus which ones are coming to transact. So because of that, most websites are like, nope, none of it. You can all bugger off. And they've blocked everything, which is probably the right move. So if you do need to scrape, Apify is still going to be the way to do it because they have bots which are purpose built to go around the blocking. All right, I'm going to finish up. Thank you, everybody. It's been an hour. It was a very different type of episode today, doing a deep dive rather than news, but hopefully it was still valuable. We'll get some good YouTube videos out of it as well. Everything will be summarized in the newsletter tomorrow, and I'm going to give you links to that Fei-Fei Lee article and her original tweet, which kind of sums everything up as well. So hopefully that would be useful, and I'll be back around 10 a.m. UK time with some news if there is any. If not, I want to do a deep dive into context engineering. Thank you so much everybody for being here. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. We just crossed 8,500 subscribers, trying to push to 10,000 by the end of the year. So if you're not subscribed and you find this stuff useful, please go and subscribe over on YouTube, because it really helps me and it makes me want to keep doing this. The newsletter, you'll find a link below this video wherever you're watching this right now. It's a totally free newsletter, comes out every single morning, and has written summaries of what's been covered on the previous live, as well as links to the resources. Great. Thank you so much everybody, and I'll see you